A reading from the book of the prophet Zechariah, chapter 7, a question about fasting. In the 4th year of King Darius, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah on the 4th day of the 9th month, the month of Kislev. The people of Bethel had sent Sharezer with a deputation to entreat the Lord's favor, and to ask the priests in the temple of the Lord Sabaoth and the prophets, should I go on mourning and fasting in the 5th month, as I have been doing for so many years past? Historical summary. Then the word of the Lord Sabaoth came to me, saying, Say to all the people of the country and to the priests, while you have been fasting and mourning in the 5th and 7th months for the past 70 years, have you really been fasting for my sake? And when you eat and drink, are you not eating and drinking for your own sake? Do you not know the words which the Lord proclaimed through the prophets in the past, when Jerusalem was inhabited and secure, as were her surrounding towns, and when the Negeb and the Shephelah were inhabited? The word of the Lord came to Zechariah, saying, Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, apply the law truly and show faithful love and compassion towards one another. Do not oppress the widow and the orphan, the foreigner and the poor, and do not secretly plan evil against one another. But they would not listen. They turned a rebellious shoulder. They stopped their ears rather than listen. They made their hearts adamant rather than listen to the teaching and the words that Lord Sabaoth had sent by his Spirit through the prophets in the past. And consequently, the wrath of the Lord Sabaoth overtook them. And so, since when he called, they would not listen, when they called, I would not listen, says the Lord Sabaoth. But I scattered them among all the nations unknown to them. Hence, after they had gone, the country was deserted, and no one came or went. They had turned a land of delights into a desert. The word of the Lord. A reading from the book of the prophet Zechariah, chapter 8, a promise of messianic salvation. The word of the Lord Sabaoth came, saying, Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, I have been burning with jealousy for Zion, with furious jealousy for her sake. Thus says the Lord, I am coming back to Zion, and shall live in the heart of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall be called the faithful city, and the mountain of the Lord Sabaoth, the holy mountain. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, aged men and women will once again sit in the squares of Jerusalem, each with a stick to lean on, because of their great age. And the squares of the city will be full of boys and girls playing there. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, if to the remnant of this people this seems a wonder in those days, will it seem one to me, declares the Lord. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, look, I shall rescue my people from the countries of the east and from the countries of the west. I shall bring them back to live in the heart of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their God, faithful and just. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, let your hands be strong, you who today hear these promises uttered by the prophets, since the day when the foundations of the temple of the Lord Sabaoth were laid, that the sanctuary would indeed be rebuilt. For up to now, workers were not paid their wages, and nothing was paid for the animals either. And it has not been safe for anyone to come and go because of the enemy, since I had set each one against everyone else. But from now on, I shall not treat the remnant of this people as I have treated them in time past, declares the Lord Sabaoth. Now they will sow in peace. The vine will give its fruit, the soil will give its produce, and heaven will give its dew. I shall bestow all these on the remnant of this people. Just as once you were a curse among the nations, house of Judah and house of Israel, so now I shall save you, and you will be a blessing. Do not be afraid, but let your hands be strong. For thus says the Lord Sabaoth, just as I resolved to harm you when your ancestors provoked me to anger, and I did not relent, says the Lord Sabaoth, so now I have changed my mind and intend to treat Jerusalem and the house of Judah well. Do not be afraid. These are the things that you must do. Speak the truth to one another. At your gates, administer fair judgment, conducive to peace. Do not secretly plot evil against one another. Do not love perjury, since I hate all this, declares the Lord. Answer to the question on fasting. The word of the Lord Sabaoth came to me, saying, thus says the Lord Sabaoth, the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th, the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th shall be glad, joyful, happy festivals for the house of Judah. So love truth and peace. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, in the future, peoples and citizens of many cities will come, and citizens of one city will go to the next and say, come, let us go to entreat the Lord's favor and seek out the Lord Sabaoth. I am going myself. Yes, many peoples and great nations will seek out the Lord Sabaoth in Jerusalem and entreat the Lord's favor. Thus says the Lord Sabaoth, in those days, 10 men from nations of every language will take a Jew by the sleeve and say, let us go with you, since we have heard that God is with you. The word of the Lord.